So the title of this is Leadership Lessons from Assistant to CEO. Clearly a very big journey for you to become the CEO of FedEx Custom Critical, the first black woman to lead this operating division of FedEx. So congratulations to you. Before we get started on your journey, just do you have a general takeaway from the pandemic and everything that's gone on that's shaped your leadership philosophy?
Absolutely. When I think about, January of 2020, the philosophy that I continue to take on as a leader is really about resilience. It's about staying steadfast to focus on our objectives and being resilient regardless of what the challenges may be.
Well, you and I had a chance to talk before we did this right here at the CNBC event, and you shared some of your personal story. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a bit about that. You certainly began your journey at FedEx. You weren't looking to become the CEO by any means. You were just looking for a job. Tell us about the mindset that you started with and the mindset that you have now and that you kind of built along your journey.
Sure. So, 30 plus years ago when I started, I was a 19-year-old single mom. So my focus at that time really was around having a job with consistent hours. It was many years later that I started to focus on a career and recognizing the world of FedEx and how big it was. It was later that I decided to really be intentional with my career. And that focus has really driven me to the place I'm in today as the president and CEO of FedEx Custom Critical. And there's a couple things that have helped me along the way, and I'll share a couple of those with you. I think the first one was just understanding what I wanted to do, how I thought I could bring value to an organization, and then beginning to share that with people. That really evolved to having a board of directors and people supporting my career.
So you mentioned the term and being intentionality. In the beginning, you did have some intentionality. You wanted a steady paycheck. As you've gone along on your journey, have you changed your intentionality? Has that intentionality changed in some ways?
Well, I certainly realize with the role and the responsibility that I have in the organization, my intentionality is really to focus on bringing the business forward to ensure that our people are able to demonstrate the best in their skills and their ability. And that's really what I'm aspired to do and continue to do.
Well, I believe your start might be a case study in leadership. You took over FedEx Custom Critical on January 1st of 2020. Obviously, about 100 days later, the entire world changed dramatically in a way it hadn't in literally 100 years. So when you reach that point in March where the pandemic becomes basically a global crisis, what are some of the first steps that you took?
Yeah, I guess I have to start with, that old saying of be careful what you ask for. So in January of 2020, I was able to achieve a goal of mine. And then 90 days later, it started to look a little bit different. And so being agile and just being able to adapt with what was going on, realizing that there was no playbook. So I didn't feel that I was at any disadvantage from any other president or CEO. And I thought it was important for me to really communicate to the organization during a time with so much uncertainty, and then be able to ensure that we worked in a way that allowed us to continue to do the jobs that we all had.
How did the pandemic change your perceptions about leadership? I mean, before the pandemic, I know one thing that was a big thing in your industry and many others is you got to play hurt. You got to come in when you're sick. You got to try to overcome personal challenges to be here if you really want to be successful. Has that changed at all after the pandemic?
Well, I think a couple things. When we think about the pandemic early in March and even April and May, we all thought, at least many of the people I spoke to, thought it was short-lived. And so we thought we'd be back to the normal that we all knew within 60, 90 days. And it became clear it was going to be a much longer time frame with that. One of the beautiful things I saw during that early time was the grace that we gave everyone. So you think about people starting to work from home and the interruptions that would happen because they weren't necessarily set up for that environment. Rather, it would be the child that was also at home or the dog that was barking. There was just a lot of grace that we all had for one another in that new environment. And so as we fast forward to 2022, it was really driving how we work and where we work. I think there's an opportunity to take those lessons learned and take the physical space that you need along with the digital tools that we have and really bring those together in both a remote and hybrid type of environment.
So we just focused on the challenges a short time ago, but as you mentioned, there's lessons that you learned, and there's probably capabilities that you uncovered that you didn't know that your organization had, or maybe you yourself personally you didn't know that you had. Can you kind of share some of those lessons and some of the strength and other things that you found during this crisis?
Yeah, one of the immediate things I would say was our speed to problem solve. And so when we thought about the need to get our team members working from home, the way we did that was a very agile approach. We didn't have a proof of concept around it, and our focus was really to get people home fairly quickly. With the infrastructure, since it had not been tested in that way, our goal was to continue to work to see if we were going to break it and then fix it. And so that ability of taking such a complex problem and breaking it down into simpler terms and doing it at the speed that we did, which was a couple business days, certainly was something that we continue to utilize in our work today. You know, how are we solving problems and how can we do it faster than historically we had done it? I think the other thing that we've taken away from that is, from a leadership standpoint, you can't stress the importance of communication and being a strong leader and sharing with the organization where you're going and how you're going to get there, and really having all of your team members rally around that as well.
So you mentioned hybrid work, and you mentioned just a transformation in your business. As you go forward, what is the future of leadership? Is it all about giving that flexibility and be able to communicate with your team members on multiple platforms, whether it's Teams, in person, over the phone, and having people in different places? Or is it more about bringing people back to the office?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of it all. When you think about the work environment, you're dealing with multi-generational workforce. You're dealing with people want to work from home. You have work that can be done at home. You have the opportunity of doing collaboration in person. And so we're really embracing the whole physical and digital meeting together. And so it's really about the tools that we use when we do come to the office, doing it with intentionality because of the type of work that we're going to do, and that collaboration method of it as well. As a leader, it's so important to have some form of visibility of your team so that you can also mentor and sponsor them. And so it's important to look at how you do that, both in the physical environment as well as a digital environment.
So I think there's a lot of people who are watching this that are leaders of teams, managers, maybe some CEOs as well, and you've certainly been tested by fire. Again, taking over FedEx Custom Critical on January 1st of 2020, less than 100 days before the pandemic, and then after that, you had another global event with the passing and the death of George Floyd. You managed two big crises and two big global events at the same time. Is there one big leadership lesson that you want to share with everybody about getting your team not only through a crisis, but moving it forward beyond that?
I think it's authenticship in being a leader. In both of those situations, there was a lot of emotions that were provoked individually, professionally, and you had it in your organization. And my approach was to lead the organization with my authentic self. And so sharing, how I felt during the pandemic and some of the uncertainty that was going there. And then also with the murder of George Floyd, the emotions that came from that of being upset, and how as an organization we would move forward and learn information, get ourselves educated on what was going on, and then moving forward and accelerating even some of our strategies around DEI.
Yeah, that's really interesting how DEI has become a bigger part of being a leader. Ramona Hood, it's been a remarkable journey for you from assistant to CEO. I think the title even undersells this journey when you factor in the pandemic and other big issues that you're facing. One last word before we let you go. Obviously, there's been some big changes in e-commerce. There's big changes in logistics overall in general. How are you leading through this next phase of a post-pandemic business world?
Yeah, for FedEx Custom Critical, our focus is to continue to focus in the spaces we do. It's business to business, exclusive use. We provide a suite of solutions that really support customers that need quality, security because of the high value products that they need. And our focus is to continue to understand the value we bring to them and focus on those industries that we serve very well.